What's up guys, Justin here for Team Shenanigans, and today I'll be bringing you guys my newest Legend World deck, Toilet. So, Toilet Fairies is kind of really taking the buddy fight scene by storm. Over in Japan, there's a bunch of different builds topping, and a lot of people over in the English format, since the set just came out, are having a lot of fun with it. Mainly because, you know, Hanako and Min Joo combined with a bunch of Oneoffs in the deck are just a really powerful engine. Anyway, there's a lot of different cards you can play with. I'm running a lot of 1s and 2ofs just to kind of keep the Professor Min Joo loop going. But there's a lot of different deck choices you can make, but I just wanted to bring you guys my build. So starting out, we run 4 copies of Hanako. She is a 9/2/7 with triple attack, and she can only enter the field via the effect of your item, which is your toilet. And when she enters the field, you destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field, and then you gain life equal to the amount of cards destroyed. So it's really good. The toilet's effect is counter speed, so swing with your board, swing with your toilet, and then call her out, and then triple attack, which is really good. And you can also do it defensively. Your opponent enters battle, you can, if your toilet has no soul, go ahead and remove it, call a Hanako out, pop their field, and they basically have to end turn. Also, this is a really good counter to any Dragon World deck. You can wait till they're done with their attacks, and when they declare in their final phase, you can go ahead and do the toilet, call Hanako to the center, and now they can't impact you. So, that's really nice. Next is 3 copies of Fairy King Oberon. Oberon's the OG card for that really made Legend Heroes work, but you've never really been able to use them in Fairies because Fairies have always been a bad deck. So he's a 9/2/7, double attack, and as long as you have 7 or more heroes or fairies in your drop, it can be a mixed match, just 7 or more heroes or fairies combined, you nullify all monsters' abilities on your opponent's side of the field. So it's really good. It's really nice to call this out before you Hanako, so if they have something that says it can't be destroyed, if you call Hanako out while Oberon's still on the field, their effect's still nullified while Hanako's effect resolves to destroy it, so it's really nice. And it's just extra double attacker, and it really helps you in the Prism Dragon matchup because, like Thor's, can't be destroyed by effects, so you just have to worry about getting rid of the shoes. And as long as they don't have the shoes on the board, you can nullify their Thor's effects with Oberon and get rid of it pretty easily. Next, run 4 copies of the Toilet Paper Guy. He's a 4/2/5. He's your searcher of the deck. Call cost pay gauge. When he enters the field, search your deck for any toilet card. So not every fairy in the deck has the toilet attribute, but the most important ones do, you know, besides Oberon. Hanako, he can search, I don't think he can search copy of himself. Yeah, you can search copy of himself if you want to just call it out again next turn, but I don't think he'd ever do that. Usually, you can search out Hanako. Usually you're not worried about that because it's going to make its way to the drop zone through milling. You usually want to search out either your Butler Guy for drawing cards, your Min Joo for doing all your effects, or you can search out your item or your toilet stall door null thing. So, really good card. Really good opening play. Next, I run 3 copies of All King. This is your way to kind of get rid of Prism Dragon's shoes so O'Brien can do what he needs to do. It can get rid of anything else, like any set spells for Katana World or anything like that. Or any trouble item. Like if an item has Soul Guard, you call this out, mill 3, pop it once to get rid of its soul, so then when you Hanako, it's gone. So it's a 4/2/5, and act ability once per turn. Put the top 3 cards of your deck into the drop zone. If you do, destroy a spell or item on your opponent's side of the field. So it's very good. If nothing else, even if they don't have a spell or an item, you can still do the effect to mill. So that's really what it's in there for. Next, 1 copy of Negrables. This is just solely for the Chaos matchup. This card's amazing. 6/2/3 for a gauge, and as long as it's on the field, whenever a monster on your your opponent's side of the field is destroyed, you deal damage to them equal to its size. So in the Chaos matchup, you have this guy on the field, and you're swinging and everything. You know, if you actually manage to kill Gear God while this guy's on the field, you know, it's over, game over. But even, let's say in the Chaos matchup, you're swinging, all their stuff's still on the field, and then you Hanako while this guy's still on the field. You can't destroy Gear God with Hanako's effect because the flag protects it, but you can pop those size 3s still. So you pop those size 3s, and you're dealing at least, like, if you pop 2 or 3 size 3s, you're dealing anywhere between 3 to 9 damage to them. So that's really good. Next, I run 1 copy of I'm not going to butcher this name. I'm just going to call him by the first 2 names. Treasure Jailer, don't know how to pronounce that last part. He's a 5/2/1. This card's really good. It's kind of just an extra copy of the next size 1 I'm about to get to. Just once per turn, if he's in your drop zone, you can pay gauge to call him out, and whenever he enters the field, you take a damage and then mill 3 cards from the top of your deck. So you're taking a damage, but he's a different name that mills, and he's kind of like a Don. That you have to pay gauge for, so he's pretty good. Next, run 3 copies of Dalhast. It's a 4/2/3. When it enters the field, put the top 3 cards of your deck in your gauge. So that's why I say he's just an extra copy of this, because I kind of wanted to run 4 of this, but this is basically the same thing, but it can revive itself from your drop. So if the game starts to go on kind of long, this can really help out. But these things, this card, just are really great for milling. Speaking of milling, we're going to go on to the buddy of the deck. 4 copies of your little bathroom hand dryer guy. Your little butler is what I call him. He's a 1/1/1, so he's not very good stat wise. But when he enters the field, you put the top 3 cards of your deck into your drop zone and you draw a card. And it's actually an ability name. So it's named Gentleman's Escort. So if you have multiple copies of him, you still can't, do it multiple times. So keep that in mind. What I like to do first turn, a lot of times if I'm going first and I already have my toilet in my hand and I have my toilet paper, if I already have a copy of this guy and the toilet in my hand and the toilet paper, I'll call the toilet paper, search for an extra copy of this guy, go and put it in my hand, and then go ahead and call the second copy that I have in my hand of this guy just to get the extra draw. And then I know I'm going to get an extra draw on the next turn too. So it's really good plussing. You can buddy pretty much anything in this deck. I've seen people buddy Hanako, buddy the butler guy, buddy Min Joo. It really doesn't matter. It's just personal preference, honestly. Next, I run 4 copies of Professor Min Joo. I keep thinking that he's like a different name because it's the second Min Joo we've gotten. So he's a 100/1/100. So piss poor stats. He's not going to be running anything over. His call cost is a gauge, and it's an act ability once per turn. You can put 4 or more cards from your drop zone with different names to the bottom of your deck. If you put 4 or more, you gauge 2. If you put 8 or more, you also draw a card, and if you put 12 or more, you also search your deck for a card and add it to your hand. Any card. So this card is busted. Keep in mind, if you want to get the full skill off of gauge 2, draw 1, and then search your deck and add a card, you have to put 12 different names all at the same time. So it takes a lot of setup, and that is honestly why I run so many different names in this deck. So you just have to make smart decisions when you're paying gauge, and sometimes go ahead and cast a null, attack null earlier in the game than you normally would, just to get that extra card and drop. Next, 3 copies of Loki. Loki's just an all-around amazing card in this deck. I would run 4, but honestly the spacing is kind of tight, and you don't want to run a lot of 4-ofs, because you don't want to get your drop zone too cloggy. So Loki is really great in this deck because you don't only use it against your opponent. If you're new to Buddy Fight and you don't know what Loki does, he's 3,000 power, 0 crit, 5,000 defense, size 0. Whenever he enters the field, you select any card on the field and remove all its soul. So usually, what you usually use this card for is offensively to help get rid of your opponent's wall. So you just drop it down and remove. If they have a big monster in the center with a lot of soul, you remove all its soul. So you can still do that, but the main play you use it for is to remove all the soul from your toilet, which we'll get to here in a minute. So you can Hanako really fast. So you can, if you have a toilet on the field with no soul, you drop a Loki with no soul. You can go ahead and use its skill to get a Hanako out. If you have a second Hanako and drop, go ahead and equip another toilet. Go ahead and drop this Loki, get rid of its soul. So now you've got a triple attacking Hanako with 2 crit. You're going to get to swing with your toilet for 2 crit, and then do effect again to call out another Hanako for another set of triple attacks. Just busted combos you can do in this deck. So that's Loki at 3 copies. Next, I'll run 1 copy of the original Sylph. It really annoys me this card isn't a fairy. It is the only Sylph in the game that's not a fairy at this point, and it is the first one. So it's before Bushiroad knew they were going to do anything to do with fairies. So it's 1,000 power, 1 crit, and 1,000 defense. So again, it's not going to run over much. Its call cost is 1 gauge, but when it enters the field, you can search your deck. You can search your drop zone for an item and add it to your hand. So it's just another way to get your toilets back to your hand. And again, another name in the deck. So that's it for the regular monsters. I run 2 impact monsters of the Sylph Fairies Banquet. It is a size 1 impact monster with 5,000 power, 2 crit, and 4,000 defense. Its call cost is pay 2 gauge and put a fairy or a wider Sarkau monster from your field into the drop. And when it enters the field, you stand all fairy monsters on your field, and they can attack during the final phase. You can also run the Toilet Impact if you want. I just choose to run this instead because the Toilet Impact, you can only cast it if you have a Hanako on the board, and since Chaos is so big, they can easily destroy it with the size 3 Legend World card. You just don't want to, if you don't have a Hanako, this is like an extra out to kind of push your opponent. And it's really nice if you do your whole combo and get your Hanako out and triple attack, and you have a couple size 0s on the side, like of your Butler guy and your Min Joo, and you put Hanako in the drop to call this thing out, you stand your 2 size 0s again, and then swing for another 2 crit, and then poke them for 1 and 1 again. So it can really help end games. And there's a nice play with this, with a card I'm going to get to in a minute, that can really help you deal with walls that maybe you didn't get your Hanako out and it couldn't deal with it. So it can really help you clear and rush down your opponent. Next, I run 4 copies of the Toilet item. It's a 4k power, 2 crit. Its equip cost is pay 2 gauge and put 3 cards from the top of your deck into its soul, and it has Soul Guard. And its ability is, it's got 2 abilities. First of all, whenever you are attacked, not one of your monsters, even if you have a monster in the center, this ability won't proc. It only procs when you're attacked, even if you null the attack, which is very important. Whenever your opponent attacks you, you may put a soul from this card. You have to put a soul from this card into the drop. And then counter speed. When this card, you may put this card with 0 soul, so it has to be soulless, from your field into the drop. If you do, call a toilet monster from your hand or drop zone by paying its call cost. So it's very good because Hanako has no call cost. So that's nice. So again, like I've already kind of spoken about a lot of the crazy combos you can do with that. It's just a overall very good card, and it's also kind of funny. It has Soul Guard. Next, we're getting into the spells. I run 4 copies of the Door That Just Wouldn't Open. This is like the haunted bathroom stall door going to the toilet, so it's kind of funny. you may only cast this card when you're being attacked. Cast cost is 1 gauge, and you just nullify the attack. And if you have a toilet on your field, you remove a soul from a card on your field. So, if you have an open center and your opponent swings at you and you cast this, you're removing 2 soul from your toilet. 1 through this effect, and then 1 because it's being attacked. Well, you're being attacked. So it's very nice to help turbo soul out of it. And it's fairy attribute, so it works with Oberon and your butler guy. Because I forgot to mention, your butler guy, when enters the field and you mill 3, you only get the draw if you milled a fairy, which is never an issue. You have to get extremely unlucky to not mill a fairy out of 3 cards in this deck. So sorry I forgot to mention that. But overall, it's a very good card. This can even null an attack if you have a monster in the center. It can null any attack. So with like Holy Grail, it can't protect your monster in the center, which is its weakness. And then Scorner Gremlin, it can't stop link attacks, which is its weakness. So for the cost of 1 gauge, this is just a better shield than both of those. Next, speaking of Holy Grail, I run it at 2 copies. I would, if it wasn't for needing to run different names, I would run this at 4 instead, because it is overall a better shield than like any of like these 2 cards. But you need different names, and you're running the door anyway, so it's not as needed. So I run it at 2 versus how I run these 2 cards at 1, just because it is a better card. As long as you don't have a monster in the center, you can nullify an attack. Next, I'm going to get into these Oneoffs. They're kind of similar. 1 copy of Scorner Gremlin. It can nullify any attack as long as it's not a link attack, like even if you have a monster in the center, so it's nice. Then 1 copy of this old card, Shield of Achilles. Counter speed. Well, you may only cast this card when you would be dealt damage. You counter speed, reduce the damage by 2. So it's not doing much against like 3 crit attacks, but it's an extra name. It's basically a shield, since most monsters still only have 2 crit. So it's okay, it's a different name, and it can even stop effect damage, you know, like burn damage and such, and impacts that, as long as the impact doesn't state, it can't be reduced. So it's a nice okay card. And then 1 copy of Power of Mythology. This card is an old card also, and you may be asking, why in the world am I running this card? Well, the whole thing is it can give you so many answers to so many problems. So its cast cost is 2 gauge, and then you choose 1 of the 3 effects, and you can only cast this once per turn, I believe. No, it doesn't say once per turn. Okay, so if you have multiples, which I only run 1 because it's searchable through Min Joo. So pay 2 gauge, and you can either nullify an attack during your opponent's turn. So it's an extra null, it's just a very expensive extra null. Or you can choose a monster on your field and give it penetrate for the turn. So if your opponent has something in the center that can be penetrated, you'll have you can cast this on Hanako, and now you have a triple attack, 2 crit penetrate card on board, which is can be really devastating. But probably my favorite part now, especially with how weak like these monsters are, you can choose, the third and final effect is you can have all your monsters for the rest of the turn gain plus 5,000 power. So it doesn't sound like much at first, but it's for the entire turn. So even when you call out your Hanako or your impact monster, just all your monsters have plus 5k power. So that means your butler guy is swinging for 6 now. So it's hitting most of the stuff that matters in Chaos. Your Min Joo is actually swinging for 5,000 now, so it can actually hit a couple things. Your Loki's swinging for 8,000, so wow. Your impact monster Sylph is swinging for 10. You know, your Dalahast is swinging for 9. This guy 10. You know, 11. Just, you can go on. Like, it makes Hanako swing for 14k triple attack. So it's just a very good pressure card. So your ideal turn would be, you have your toilet equipped with no soul, you have either 2 of this guy on board or 1 of this guy on board. You're most likely this guy because you use his full effect to search your deck and add this to hand. Go ahead and cast it. Now everything on your field gets plus 5k power for the rest of the turn. So you're swinging, swing, swing, call out Hanako, swing, 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 call out your impact monster, put Hanako in the drop, restand these 2, swing for 10, swing, swing. So you're just putting up so much pressure. So this is just yet another answer to walls, because again, we are in a very big wall meta. You got your Prism Dragons, you've got Jaegers still around, you've got Chaos, which is basically a wall. So next, I run 2 copies of Osweirgard, and actually one of these is going to change to the Valentine's Day promo. I've got one ordered in the mail, which is just the exact same card, so it'll basically still be running 2 Osweirgards, but one will have a different name, which really helps out Min Joo. And I'm very much, even if you max out Osweirgard, I definitely recommend running 2 of this in this, 2 regular Osweirgard in this deck, and then 2 of the Valentine's Day promos. Definitely split it up because it's the exact same card, so you get the effects of running multiple copies of it while also helping Min Joo, because they'll have different names. So it's very good. If you don't know what Osweirgard does, counter speed, put a monster from your drop zone, a monster from your field into the drop zone as the cast cost. So it's going to get around penetrate no matter what, even if they nullify it, because you still have to pay the cast cost. And then you gauge 1, draw 1. So it's your way of getting around penetrate, and while netting you some gauge, a lot of times you can even cast it offensively if you call a monster in your center, and to get rid of it out of your center so then your toilet can attack. Or if you just have a useless card, if you just want to drop this thing for the draw an Osweirgard, and you're like, well, I'm trying to go for game, so let's Osweirgard it away, get that extra gauge, and hopefully draw a better card. So moving on, I run 1 copy of Darkness Room. Cast cost, pay 1 life. Counter speed, you can either gauge 2, destroy a size 1 or less on the field, or remove a soul from a card on your opponent's field. So you can't use it to get rid of a soul from your toilet, which kind of sucks, but you don't really need it, so it's not that big of a deal. Main thing is it's Gauge Excel and Counter Destruction, which is really nice, all in 1 card. And I don't run 2 copies of it because my main thought of having this in here is for the Gauge Excel, so instead of running a 2nd copy of it, I run 1 copy of Hardworking Fairies, just counter speed, gauge 2. It's fairy attribute, so that's good, so it works with Oberon and your Butler guy. And it's Gauge Excel, so it's nice, and it's an extra name. So that's my deck, guys. Just let me know what you think, what's working for you. Like I said, there's a lot of different options, a lot of different things you can do with this deck. You can choose to run the Hanako Impact instead of the Sylph Impact monster if you want. There's even a size 1 Sylph you can run instead of the size 0, and it is fairy attribute. But that's my deck profile, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the video, and stay tuned for more Buddy Fight and Card Fight Vanguard content. Thanks, guys.